Okay.
In order to avoid any further interruptions, I'm going to turn off my mobile phone, and I hope the rest of you follow my example. I'm Richard Jennings. I'm a philosopher of science. I've been teaching philosophy of science for probably more decades than you want to know. About 25 years ago, I developed an interest in ethical issues in science. I looked at various aspects of science, and one of the aspects that seemed to me most relevant to ethical question was the uses of science that are made. And in the early 90s, I took an interest in a debate that was beginning to develop over the use of genetically modified food crops. And it seemed to me that the debate wasn't really going anywhere. I'm an empiricist. I believe that knowledge should be based on fact, on evidence, and on observations. And it looked to me like there was a debate that wasn't really taking in so much of the facts, but maybe there was something else going on. Well, I was doing lots of other things at the same time, so I just began to track the debate. And what eventually happened in the late 1990s was a scientist, Arpa Pushtai, at the Raoult Institute, was trying to develop a methodology for assessing the health consequences of genetic food consumption by testing it on rats. What he discovered was that there were actually some quite significant effects beginning to appear very early on in the experimental results. And he reported this. He told the public that there is this danger in genetically modified food crops. He was pilloried by the establishment, as most of us know. Now, to some, this would be not a matter of pillory, but a matter of a just response to maybe premature judgment. But as an empiricist, it seemed to me that one must really look at the facts and look at the evidence, and that if you do that, you will be able to determine what the truth is. You will be able to determine whether there is a potential danger in the use of genetically modified food crops. And as I looked at the literature, as I read for and against it, and I have to say that I was totally impartial, and I am still somewhat sitting on the fence, though it's very difficult to sit on the fence in such a highly polarized debate as we're engaged with right now. What I discovered was that those who were advocating the use of genetically modified food crops had a completely different set of authors to read, evidence to look at, and generally seemed to be living in a different world to those who were aware of the fact that there is a potential risk in the use of genetically modified food crops. So, what do we do in such a situation? Well, we try to get to the root of the matter. And if you get to the root of the matter empirically, you should be able to decide the matter empirically. But when you actually read the literature, there is no empirical root of the matter. I began to realize that there was something else going on, that it wasn't a simple matter of science, it was something else going on in the background that was, in some cases, distorting the science and suppressing the science even. Well, I got in touch with various people in the community of critics of GMO, and I began to realize that there was a kind of, what should we say, commercial interest in genetically modified food crops. And that this was beginning to affect what should be a scientific debate. Science was beginning to be distorted by commercial interest. And I found this a bit hard to believe, but as I've looked at it more and more, it certainly seems to be the case. And when I made contact with Steve and began to send me the chapters for this book, altered genes and twisted truth, I began to understand what was going on here, because he very clearly explains what the commercial and the political interests are that caused this distortion of science. The book is clearly written, incredibly well documented. It's been praised by scientists from various areas and various sciences. And it seems to me that it does explain why there isn't a scientific resolution to the debate, because there are interests who are opposed to the kind of conclusions that science actually reaches. So, reading the book, it did resolve this tension that I felt between the two debates. Now, I should tell you that I have friends who are in favor of genetically modified food crops. I think that there are good scientists in the world who think that the use of genetic modification can be used to feed the world, that can be used to solve various kinds of problems. And it may very well be that that's true. I mean, there are medicines that are generated through genetically modified bacteria and so on. But until we actually do fair tests of the possible consequences of the consumption of genetically modified foods, I don't think that it's a good idea to start distributing it, to start growing it, to release these germs into our environment. We have to have a kind of knowledge before we, as it were, jump into the abyss. So what I would like to say to you is that if you read Steve's book, you'll understand why there is this problem. And you'll understand why we have to go back to empirical science. We have to actually test these products to find if they have damaging consequences. And I'm afraid to say that we are going to find that in some cases they do. These tests have been done, but they've been suppressed. So I think now with Steve's book, laying open to society generally the reasons that these studies are suppressed, we can begin to clear the air. I think it's a good day for science. I think it's a good day for science in the sense that Steve's book is explaining why these studies are suppressed and opening the way again to resume these studies. Now, there is actually a big study waiting in the wings that's coming forward, but we're not here to talk about that. That's something that will be done, and I hope that Steve's book will manage to clear the air so that we can, in an unbiased and empirically sound way, test these products. So I think that Steve's book is going to clear the air so that we can go on and do proper science. It's a good day for science, and I think it's a good day for Steve. So welcome to this talk. Jane Goodall will say a few words, I think. Oh, you do? I think Steve wants to go first, so Steve will say a few words. And then, well, I'll let you guys decide when Steve
I want him to go first.
Jane wants him to go first, so Steve will say.
Science.
Okay. Well, let's hear what Steve has to say. Thank you.
Thank you.